So this is a really a more personal episode. I usually share more probably about the business side, the professional side. I hope it invites you to check in, maybe for the next year, how to not compromise on what you really want, desire, how to start listening more to yourself. Welcome to the inner space. This is for you if you need encouragement to be more yourself and explore your own path. Maybe because you feel different, too sensitive, or just not able to do things as everyone else seems to. There is a way, and it's your unique way. I'm Gloria Jansen. I am a coach, a healing artist, and a surfer. I am here to help you ride the waves of life, work, and business to find that deeper alignment with your creative and sensitive soul. If this feels like you, I invite you to know yourself better, feel all the emotions, and trust yourself, so you experience the freedom and fulfillment of being and doing you. Subscribe now to catch the next wave to the inner space, where authenticity sets you free. This episode is for you if you want to do a 2024 review. Also, if you want to know me better, I'm going to share what I've been going through more on the personal side and also share with you how I prepare for the next year. So how was 2024 for you? Of course, I would love to hear about it. So comment this episode, share with me. And as you know, this is the inner space. So here I invite you to give some space for reflection, for a kind of review of your year. So how was 2024 for me? It's interesting because I've changed 2, 3 years ago my way to end the year and especially set new intentions for the next year. Before, I would usually have done, in a classical way, like, okay, 2025 is coming. What do you want to see happening? Which project would you like to birth? Really kind of more of a goal approach. And something shifted when I was in Italy, in the south of Italy. It was a beautiful place. I was really spending the last days before entering in the new year. There the weather was quite nice, being able to have a walk next to the water and just feeling into the vibe. And when I was there, and it was quite an extraordinary New Year's Eve, I was like, oh, how does the next year feel? That was the question. Instead of what do you want to see happening in the next year, a very goal-setting approach, it's like, how does the next year feel? And of course, you need to give some space. You might have answers if you are quite intuitive. Maybe it will take a bit more time. And I was really surrendering in the moment, just feeling into the moment and seeing this very moment of the transition of the last year into the new year as a moment of things coming to me instead of me going to things. The movement is more a movement of reception than a movement of actively seeking something. And I believe that's also something super important, to be in these two modes of, okay, I'm active, I'm in movement, and I'm able also to receive. As I was there, the word extraordinary came to me. It's like, whoa, that's how the next year feels. Of course, you can imagine when you're like, oh, wow, that's a nice word to announce the upcoming year. And I really stayed with that word in a receptive and active mode. In an active mode in the sense of, okay, every month I would see, do I have something planned that is extraordinary? How can I make something happen to make it extraordinary? How can I live maybe a quite simple moment in an extraordinary way? So that was me actively making it happen. and in a receptive mode, making space for life to surprise me and bring something extraordinary. And the year really unfolded that way. If you've been following me for a while, I had shared like a summary of what happened every month, and it was truly incredible. I really loved it, of course. And then I came to the end of the year. I repeated the same process. I was like, okay, how do you feel for next year? What's coming? And there I was like, I sense it's not going to be exactly the same. I was like, oh shit, I really liked the word for the previous year. I would like something similar. And that's how, like, sometimes you have expectation, or at least you of course, believe everyone would like to have something extraordinary. And I couldn't put exactly a word in that moment, but I felt the year would be different. And now we are at the end of the year. If you listen to this episode, end of 2024, maybe you listen to it beginning of 2025, and that's fine too. We are still in this energy of transition. I'm reflecting back now because, as I said, it's a 2024 review, but also, of course, we can set things for 2025. And I look back, I'm like, oh, now I understand better the feeling I had about the year to come. Because your soul knows already in advance and can sense things happening. I now know the word that summarizes the year, which is not so much a description, like the adjective I had before, which is extraordinary, but which is much more what I had to develop this year. What did my life ask me to deepen this year? And that's the question before I answer for myself. I would love you to tell me, what did life this year propose you to develop and to dig deeper? Yeah, what did life propose you this year? What was maybe the lesson, if you like that phrasing? But I don't know. I'm not sure it resonates for me. What were you here to learn this year? And for me, the word, and you have it already in the introduction of the inner space, you might remember I say I invite you to develop self-knowledge, self-mastery. I speak about feeling all the emotions. And the third one is developing self-trust. Trusting yourself more. And this is the basics and the foundation I support you with, which are fundamental for you to live a life that fills you, that is fulfilling. And I, of course, apply that every day. And for me, this year was really about trusting myself even more than before. How did it look like? I'm going to give you very concrete examples. I'm going to talk about 3, a very specific moment in the year. And the first one was, we had already felt at the end of last year with my partner that we wanted to move. We felt something needs to shift. We don't want to be anymore where we are. We were in Boston at that time. And we just felt things need to shift. We started to wonder, where do we want to go? My husband's dream was like, I want to move to New York. I felt like, whoa, this is maybe a bit too overwhelming, but let's stay open, travel there, have a look, see, because the city has many different suburbs, it can be very different. And we started to go on that quest and finding our way through that idea. We visited some places, apartments, to really imagine where we could live, started to make also financial planning to see how much it would cost and so on. We started to do that and we went quite a few times. We had spent 1 week in New York. We had planned the week after to go to Miami to visit friends and family in Miami. We landed in Miami. And at the end of the week, I said to my partner, it could be nice to live in Miami. And we had already been working, on more on the New York version. I introduced that idea. we started to talk about it, and then it followed like weeks of discussion. We knew our lease would end in October, so our lease with the apartment. So we had to take a decision if we renew it, if we move to another city. And there we went back and forth. And I was really regularly feeling into Miami, New York, maybe somewhere else. Of course, I told you my husband was really for New York, but I felt something had shifted. And then it actually was a similar moment that I became pregnant. And from that moment, I wasn't the only one thinking and feeling. Like already a soul was ready in my body and was influencing also the decision process. It took me a bit of time to understand that. There's a book that was recommended by a friend that I love, which is called Spirit Babies. It's a medium who is really specialized in making baby come on this earth and has a lot of knowledge, so I highly recommend it if you're interested. And also from a neuroscience perspective, I can't remember the name because it's quite scientific. We don't use it daily, but when you are pregnant, you share with your baby. It's not just, before I thought it's you are like the babies in your environment, but the baby's cells are like in your heart, in your head, like in your entire body. It's quite impressive. Whatever. What I mean with that is my space from that moment was not anymore only my space. From the moment I became pregnant, I started to be connected to my baby's soul. I started to make decisions not just for myself, for us as a couple, but for us as a family, and also including the baby. Now I'm talking about it, I have much more understanding, but at that time I didn't that much. I was like asking the baby, what's the environment where actually you want to be born? What's also for me, myself, of course, what's the environment where you want your baby to be born, where you want to do the postpartum period? And I knew that the baby would come in December. So for once, for me, this Christmas is not... Usually I am in Austria, where part of my family is from, so a more wintry vibe. And this time I'm going to be in the warmth. And I was feeling into all of that for the baby, for us, for me. And we started to have so many discussions because it wasn't really the plan of my partner. And that's the first time, because I'm going to describe you three key moments. That was the first moment where it took me so much self-trust, because I didn't have 100% certainty. From my human design, I know I'm never going to reach that, oh yes, this is the right decision. So it's not super easy to move when you don't have this 100% certainty. But I knew that's fine, that's normal, that's enough. And in this situation, as in the next one I'm going to describe, I was going to say to convince my partner, or more to make him be open and agree to my proposal, because he had a different plan. So one thing is trusting yourself and you're just by yourself, and one thing is trusting yourself in a situation where you are impacting many other people. Like if I go back to a moment where I had to develop self-trust, which was a big change in my life in 2019, also a year of self-trust for many reasons, and that time I felt like I wanted to go to Australia. I was by myself, but I didn't know. I was like, will I really like it? I had lots of fears, moving continent. I also didn't have financial stability at that time. So it was very scary to do the move also by myself to a city where I didn't know anyone, just based on the feeling and the calling of there is something there for me, and I also desire to go there. So there I had to develop self-trust and move with that. And I went there, and it was a very good decision. And this time, this year, it's not just about me. I'm making my partner move and my future family. this is not only involving me. I need a deeper level of self-trust because I'm embarking someone else in the decision. Because my partner had another vision, it needs you really need to be super centered, going always back to what you feel sense is right, and of course having discussions so that it works for both. In the end, the answer is we moved. And that's where I'm recording the podcast. That's where I'm spending my Christmas time and the following month. And we did that move. But I can tell you in that moment, there was a lot of doubt, of questioning, of feeling of responsibility as well. That was not easy to move through. So I'm, of course, thankful to my partner to have trusted me and to have done that move. And now that I am here, it's always so easy to say it later on. I'm like, yes, I'm happy to be here. I'm enjoying when I'm out. I feel the connection to the nature. Yes, I feel good here. So that was the first example I wanted to share. Then the second one is again related to my pregnancy. I wanted to visit a friend who is living in Kenya. And being pregnant, you might imagine that it's not very recommended to go to Africa, especially because I don't live in Africa, so my body's not used to the condition there, the diseases, because of course many women have kids in Africa. But if you would read the recommendation, whether it's from the doctors in the US, in Europe, they do not recommend when you are pregnant to go there. I made research. I didn't have the vaccines, like for example, the yellow fever vaccine. There was the question of the medicine against malaria, that we didn't had so much information about what's the impact for the baby. There was one medicine that we had enough, but then this medicine made you have psychotic moment, depression, have suicidal thoughts. So you can imagine that you don't want to take that medicine. And again, a sense of, if I go there, do I do the vaccine? Which medicine do I need to take? Same thing we discussed with my partner, and he knew I wanted to go there because I wanted to visit my friend. We also had planned a trip with other friends, so I felt it was also a last special moment before welcoming a baby in our family where I would be only with my friends. And I knew like it's super precious for me also living abroad to have that quality time. So that was the main reason I wanted to go. And of course, like Kenya also was a beautiful opportunity with my friend living there, seeing all the animals, the nature. And here, you can't imagine the back and forth. Luckily, my friend was living there. I had another friend also there, so we could have very concrete discussion about what was the situation there. If you are able to put yourself in the situation I'm describing, there is responsibility there. Because of course you don't want your baby to get malaria, or even without a baby, you don't want to. You know the impact, everything can happen. So I also had friends and professionals telling me it's a risk. Are you aware of the risk you are taking? So I assessed the risk, and you still take a decision where you don't have control over the risk. You never know what can happen. Maybe you take the decision and later on you're like, okay, I should not have done that. There again, this time my partner was more in a neutral position. He was like, of course, if I decide, I would like you not to go because there is our baby in the middle. And he's right, it's not just about me. But he didn't say, because also he knows me, I am free, I am a free spirit. He didn't say you can't go because that's not the relationship we have. At least that's not how we see our couple. So, oh my God, again, I was like, whoa. Do you trust yourself? How do you feel about that? Do you go there? And the answer you might sense this already, or if you've been following me, of course, you've seen the pictures and what I've shared, I went. It was, again, also a good decision. It was really about trusting myself, choosing who I listen to. because self-trust often is shaken by what other people say. So what do you listen to? Who do you listen to? And the most important person you need to listen to is yourself. Luckily, I also had support and great friends with whom I traveled in the end. We had such a beautiful trip. It was a good decision again, and that required for me to trust myself. Even more because, a bit like with the other decision, my partner was not 100% on board. So it requires you to have even more strength, inner strength. And then the last decision, and this one I don't have the result as I am recording, and that's fine. It's how I wanted to give birth. Knowing that I was pregnant and we decided that I would be birthing in the US, I informed myself a lot. Initially, I really was a bit scared to give birth in the US. If you want to know more, you're interested in that topic, I would highly recommend the book from Ina Mae Gaskin. She is internationally renowned as a midwife, talks a lot about the difference between the midwifery model and the obstetrical model. And there she's describing especially the American system, but as we know, what happens in America is slowly also influencing other countries, slowly or quickly. And the midwifery model is really based on the midwife approach, which is your body knows how to give birth. It's about putting your body in the right environment, and it's not a disease. Of course, if there is that's the situation of a low-risk pregnancy. If there is a disease, then of course you need more support, but basically your body knows how to do it, the baby knows how to get out, and it's about supporting the woman in her journey so that things happen smoothly and we avoid as much as possible interventions. The obstetrical model of birth is often disempowering the woman and more about we need intervention. If things don't happen in a certain timing, then there is a problem, not trusting as much the body. If you know me a bit, you can already imagine where I stand. And the intervention level is quite high in the US compared to where I come from, which is Europe. So for me, it was quite scary. I have a vision of how I want to give birth. Will I find people who will support that? And with lots of fears around what could happen if I go to the hospital. And you have to know, like, there are stats for that. You can ask, what's your level of C-section? What's your intervention rate? How often do you do this and this intervention? Levels, for example, of C-section are quite high in the US if you compare it with what is recommended by the International Health Organization, especially in Florida. It required so much work inside of me to open myself to the possibility that I will find people who will be aligned with my vision in the US. It was much easier for me in Europe. And how do I want to give birth? So that was a research for myself. I came to the conclusion that I felt safer in either a birthing center or a home birth. That's always what we say for those who are not so much into that topic of pregnancies. Like, the most important is where the mother feels safe. And some people will say, I feel safe in the hospital, and that's perfectly fine. Like, there is no generic response to that. It's, again, your sense of safety that counts. So I had done all the process, and I've been also into that topic for a longer time than since I'm pregnant. I had already a vision of birth. I have a very spiritual approach to birth. So for me, it can be something very empowering, and it can be also something very traumatic. Of course, we do prepare everything for it to be empowering, to be a beautiful experience for the baby and the mother, because, of course, I want the best for the baby. But we prepare for everything. Like, what I'm sharing, I don't have the answer as I'm recording. Maybe I'm going to end up in the hospital. Maybe the baby's choosing when he's going to be born. I have no idea how things are going. And that's dancing with life. You have a vision of your plan, how you would like it to be. You prepare for a certain plan, and then whatever comes, comes. But that's not the point I'm making when I give this example of how I needed to develop self-trust, is because in that decision process, I'm not the only one. Again, there is also my partner, and he came from a very different place. First, I think he didn't had so much knowledge, at least at the beginning, that I had gathered through the months. And it's also me giving birth. It's my body. I have to do most of the work. And for him, when I shared that, it was like first an immediate no. It's like home birth, never, too risky. And he also comes from a family where there are many doctors, many nurses working in a hospital. So I fully understand. And also he's Italian. In Italy, it's not the US. In Italy, you always have a midwife that is there for birth. In the US, it's usually 10% of the births are with a midwife. So of course, we are in a different context, and he also had to learn about how it works in the US. But for him, it was really a very intense no. And here, again, we are talking also about responsibility. It's not only my life, it's also the life of the baby. And of course, he loves us, he's there, especially as a man, as you enter this process of wanting to protect the people you love. It's not a light decision. As moving from one place to another is not a light decision. And there we were having discussions, first quite heated discussions, not easy discussion. None of the discussion I'm talking about were easy. And I remember we came to a discussion. That one was quite peaceful, and we were sitting there in the sofa, like in the evening, and going back and forth. What does it mean? We also both assessed the risks, talked with different professionals to understand. And it was a process for him to open himself to my vision. And it was a process of trusting myself. Because you can imagine all the information that comes is like, where your focus goes, it amplifies. So, this woman had this problem. If she would not have been in a hospital, she would not have survived. And my own birth was not a smooth birth. So I have also in my cells the memory of how I was born myself, which, to make it short, my mother almost died. There was an emergency C-section, and things could have gone really wrong. In the end, we all survived. We're all good. So you can imagine, between the experience of your body, the memory of your body, the feedback you receive from people, there is this general belief that home birth is not safe and that you need to birth in the hospital. That's the mainstream belief. So, of course, it's easier to trust yourself when everyone has the same approach, everyone has the same vision, and it's the mainstream dominant thinking. If it's not, well, you need more inner strength. It's the same when, imagine, I don't know if you have your own business and you are the first one in the family deciding to go towards entrepreneurship when everyone is employed. You are not in the common setting in your family. So all the beliefs of others, of your family, are going to shake you. Now, the answer, you might sense it as well, is we are preparing for a home birth. Of course, we have a plan B, don't worry. Hospital is near. And maybe I'm not going to give to birth at home. We have no idea. Maybe whatever will happen, I set the vision. I always come back to trusting myself. And I surrender then to life and what's going to happen, because you cannot control that. Maybe it's going to look very differently. But these three moments, is an engagement towards myself, where I decided to say to myself, I trust myself, and that's what I feel is right. Of course, if you have a family, there are other people you are having discussions with, and you might recognize yourself in what I'm describing. And it's another process to bring other people on board. And of course, it's compromised. There are other things where I know we've done that now, which is maybe more in my direction. And there will be other moments where it will be more in his direction, and also in the past it already happened. So it's a more common decision-making process. What I want to say is, when I felt in the first decision process of where we move, and I was like imagining myself moving somewhere else, I really felt in my soul that I would be like my soul crying. The trip to Kenya is a bit less like it's a trip, it's traveling. Of course, I would also have been very sad, but it's not the same impact as the two other decisions. And in the project of giving birth at home, I really felt, whoa, if I move with what is right for my partner, which is giving birth in a hospital, because for him it would feel safer, I felt I was compromising my soul so deeply. So deeply. Like, it really felt like a very disempowering decision. It was so strong that, yes, sometimes we had very emotional conversation. Really, because I was like, I inside of me, it was not just a decision. It was how can I phrase it? I can't even find the word, like not honoring my own path, my own soul. And also from a perspective, now I'm talking more about the relationship, the couple, the families. If in a couple you don't honor what feels right to you, which doesn't mean you have to honor it every time, because it's made of compromise. You are different people. But if you repeatedly compromise on what you feel is right for you, you lose yourself. You lose yourself in the relationship. And that's where, after many years, you end up maybe talking to me and saying to me, well, my life passed by and I didn't live the life I wanted to live. I didn't live my dreams. I didn't live where I wanted to live. I didn't do what I wanted to do. And I've lost myself in the relationship, in the family dynamic. I've lost myself. I don't know anymore who I am, my direction. And it might end up also in a divorce. And you feel like, actually, I can't live with that person anymore. Where it's because from the beginning, or maybe during the relationship, you started to forget yourselves. So these decisions are important decisions for me, because I don't want myself in the relationship to end up compromising and then being frustrated, being angry at him, feeling resentment. I want both of us, of course, to feel we can fulfill who we are also in the relationship, or outside also of the relationship. But that we can both in a certain way follow our path, even though sometimes you follow more the other person or the other one, but there needs to be, it's not even the word a balance, because that would put more like the balance between both of you. Yes, we can say it that way, but more it's like you can't compromise with yourself and your own sense of your soul path, your direction, whatever you want to call it. So this is a very more personal episode. I usually share more probably about the business side, the professional side, but we are one and we are not just our work. And I feel that might be interesting for some of you. I hope it invites you to check in, maybe for the next year, how to not compromise on what you really want, desire, how to start listening more to yourself. Of course, you need space for that to happen. And I hope this message is going to infuse in for you, so that you can also put yourself at the center of your life. Because if I had to summarize it, that's also what some of my clients struggle with, like putting themselves in the center and not just others' priorities, wishes, desires. So that was my journey more on the personal side for 2024. So summary for me, this year was about developing even more self-trust in situations where I'm maybe not doing or desiring first what my partner wants, what society approves, or mostly like the mainstream way of thinking, and how can I go in even deeper into that. That's it for 2024. To go back to you, can you plan in the next days? I was going to say in the next week, but no, in the next days, a moment where you can be more in a receptive mode, maybe have a walk by yourself, sit with a candle, take a bath, watch the ocean, whatever enables you to be more in a receptive mode, and ask, what did 2024 hold for me? You might have an immediate response. What did you strengthen this year? And what does 2025 hold for me? And for that, don't expect an immediate answer. You might have one. Maybe it will come with time. I finally understood my year at the end of the year. We learn as we go. I hope you enjoyed this sharing. Let me know about your path. And I wish you a beautiful festive season. Whenever you listen, I like the festive season. For me is a long one. Like it starts with beginning of December. We always have the Advent, like every Sunday, one candle until we burn the 4 candles and we come to Christmas. We have the 6th of December, which is important in Germany. St. Nikolaus, so it's like Nicholas. We have a tradition of you put your shoes outside as a kid, and then the Krampus in German is like a kind of monster. Either there's the monster coming and saying you were not a good kid, or you receive a gift, usually some chocolate, something simple, maybe a music CD you like. Now it's not anymore CD, but at that time it's what I received. Then we have, of course, Christmas, the 24th, the 25th, New Year's Eve, and then I extend into January. Now that I'm with my husband, who is Italian, there is also the 6th of January. So just hopefully, if you like that moment, just enjoy it. If it's not something you relate to, I would still take it as an opportunity to make some space for who you are, what feels right to you, so that you can reset and choose with intention and consciousness how you want to move in the next chapter in your life. See you very soon. Thank you for joining the Inner Space. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need exactly this encouragement. And until next time, keep exploring your inner space, where authenticity sets you free.